Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and I'm super excited that you have picked this time to share your most valuable resource, your time, with me. So, what are we doing here at Kim Talks Resilience? Well, this is where we share stories that inspire and give insight to live a better life with resilient women from around the world. Now, I do have a pitch here. I want you all to go check out queenofresilience.shop. So that's queenofresilience.shop. This is where I'm putting all my crazy stuff up. I've got go for your mother hustler bag and put on your, queen hustle sweatshirt and have a good time. Enjoy life. So that's queenofresilience.shop. So straighten your crown, shop around at queenofresilience.shop. So let's get right down to this. I want to value your time. So today's guest is actually a personal friend of mine, a gal that I have watched and grow here in Calgary. And she's just really super cool. And her energy is off the chart. And I wanted to bring her on because I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs, but the reality is there's not a single business owner that cannot get to next level with somebody like Christa to go hip to hip. She's an igniter and inspiring leader. Christa Hiebert has served as the volunteer president of the Association of Administration. She now holds the professional's position as national secretary. She's been doing this a long time, folks. Her thirst for adventure has landed her on multiple wake surfing podiums, and fearless tenacity guides her through avalanche terrain on her snowmobile. As a community builder, office manager, and executive assistant at Alaris Equity Partners, and a dedicated mom of two girls, she looks at every challenge as a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. Christa served on the branch's board as secretary for 4 years prior to her nomination as president of the Calgary AAP. That, again, is the Association of Administrative Professionals. She earned that position in 2016. Her influence and impact as president ignited an electric engagement in her community of administrative professionals. Christa is a soulful advocate that approaches life with open arms. No challenge is too mighty. Every person deserves a seat at the table, and every voice matters regardless of gender. The association exemplifies how to change the narrative, and her life passionately lived is one to inspire. With years of experience, sass, grit, and an unshakable belief to change the status quo, Christa continues to use her platform to uplift others while staying connected, supported, educated, and empowered to shine. So let's bring her into the studio. Hello, Christa.
Hi, Kim.
How's that for an opening? Did we
That's
get it
pretty
all?
powerful. It's amazing to have that kind of intro. Thank you so much. What an honor.
Well, you're awfully young, so you won't remember Ed McMahon. I barely remember him. I watched him with my grandma and grandpa, and he was the announcer for Johnny Carson. And I just loved how between him and Johnny, they just made every person walked on the stage shine. And that's all I want to do is I want everybody to know that everybody that comes on here is awesome. Okay, so Christa, we're going to get right down to it. First of all, tell us who you are.
Well, thank you again for the amazing intro that covered some of the fun and exciting things that I do. I am an administrative professional through and through. I feel that I really work within the wheelhouse of, what I love, and I feel that if you love your job and you're really seated at the right place, then it just doesn't really feel like work. And so I feel super, super lucky to have ever since I was a little girl aspired to be what I am. And as a result of that, it's opened this huge gateway of support with the Association of Administrative Professionals. Of course, that's how we got connected. So I'm an active volunteer now, going into my 13th year of volunteerism with the association, now on the national board, which is all across Canada, which I'm super proud of. And my wife and mom with two little girls that just rock my world. They're just so much fun and creative and amazing. And we live an adventurous, full life. And I I'm just so excited to be here today because of actually, Kim, I have to say my most passionate thing is resiliency. So I'm excited to talk about that a little bit with you today and unpack that a bit. And I just think, from the moment I met you, we had that connection. And yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I'm sure we'll dig into a little bit more too as we go. So
Absolutely. And, resiliency is the name of the game, right? I mean, we've seen this in every great inventor. I always like to go back to Edison. How many times did he blow something up, melt something down, cut himself on something? How many times and he never gave up? He just kept popping right back at it. And everything was in a feedback loop. Nothing was a failure. Everything was feedback. And that's one of the things that I see in you, that even when there's a challenge, and I've seen you work on the fly really fast, to address things. And this is also part of being an assistant. So there's a couple things I'd like to kind of unpack a little bit around what makes a great executive assistant. And because a lot of people are branching out from the corporate world, going into the entrepreneurship, building these small businesses, and now they're going to have to circle back around and find that right hand, that person that keeps things moving forward. Share with me a little bit of what you do and what that kind of role looks like for you.
yeah, absolutely. I love that you asked me that because I actually sit on a couple advisory boards with some educational partners right here in our city, and I get uh, the privilege to speak to a lot of students. And that question gets brought forward often. And I mean, there's so many hard skills that we all know that are important to being good at any job. But as an administrative professional, there's two things that are so important to me. And one is that, uh, there's this kind of glass ceiling that we tend to put ourselves in. Not even it's not even always others that have put us in this box, but we tend to do that within the admin role. And that can often be, you're maybe not the most educated or the highest paid person in the room, but for some reason, you are the one that is the wealth of information that keeps the whole ship afloat. And my passion is to say, let's change that status quo and recognize the value and how important it is for you to have a voice and for you to be respected in your workplace. That, most importantly, as an admin professional, is something that, ever since I joined this association, completely changed my perspective. I met a woman who actually was Jan Arden's executive assistant, and she shared this beautiful story about how, that was what she wanted to do her whole life, and she wanted to inspire others and to recognize how amazing of a job it was. And I'm like, yeah, preach. That's totally the way I feel. And it resonated with me so deeply because I think there are people in this world that have a heart to serve. And my passion is to make the person that I am working for really shine and be successful, because if they succeed, then I succeed. So of course there are those hard skills that are, that you can learn, but there's soft skills that I think make us really, really great. And that's kind of rolls back into the resiliency and, things that can't be taught out of a textbook. And I feel like that's why it's so important to have these conversations like you are giving people the platform, pardon me, to speak about.
I'll take some platinum too, or gold, either way.
Yeah,
Okay, so what I find fascinating is a really good executive assistant like yourself has to have both sides of the spectrum. So when you speak to people who've developed businesses, people who are entrepreneurs, a lot of times they're very high risk and they're very scattered. Like they're all big ideas.
yes.
And then here comes Christa, and Christa has to level out the boat and decipher the weird language they just threw out there. Because now, I mean, I know in my office you get one thing almost done and here comes another, and it's like, because I'm seeing a much bigger, right, whereas it's still all these little holes, right? Tell me how a person who is in a professional assistance position can grow their skill set so they could grow their personal income and become even more empowered within their space?
Oh, I love this question. I think it is so important to get connected to a network of support. One thing that's kind of neat about the administrative profession that's unique in its own sense is that we cover every facet of business. There is not a lot of different associations, or I could say even professions, that do that. I mean, yes, legal is in every kind of realm and things like that, but every facet of business has some type of administrative role. And we actually did a study 2 years ago where we tried to pull together every title that we could capture that encapsulated the admin profession. And I think it sat around 262 different titles. So when you look at that, everything from reception to chief of staff, legal secretary, all these different things all kind of fall within that bucket. And there is a vast range depending on where you live and who you work for and what you're doing, that can kind of hammer out what type of salary expectation there is. But ultimately, it's so incredible that it is woven with that same common thread of administrative professionalism. And I think what truly defines that person to kind of rank up is their ability to connect and lead from within and to truly understand who their support is and that they are being supported. I worked, one of my first administrative jobs when I moved to Calgary was for a very eccentric man who didn't have any children or family or spouse, and he was a full blown workaholic that worked every single day. And he used to call me in the middle of the night from the other side of the world to change flights and do this and that. And I used to say, "Oh my God, I'm sleeping. Like, can I do this in the morning?" And he'd be like, "Christa, money doesn't sleep." I'm like, "My name's not Money." And we used to joke around all the time. And he really taught me how to be resilient. But I learned so much working for someone like that. And he was, you're talking someone that's scatterbrained. This guy was at such a creative force that it was like throwing a mixed bucket of paint on the wall and then trying to figure out whose job was what. It was pretty wild experience. We'll save that for another chapter. But he was just such an interesting guy. But what it really came down to for me was, I think, learning his work style and learning where I had the authority to input what I was good at. Because, you can get behind a real creative force and a genius to their own right. And within entrepreneurship, and you have to go, okay, well, I'm not the one sitting there stroking the check at the end of the day, but it's in my best interest to make sure that they're damn good at what they're doing. And so, to learn and have the support and understand their work style is so vital. And also to truly understand the business that you're working in and enjoy it. If you're sitting there in an oil and gas job and you can't stand the thought of oil and gas and working in that environment, then maybe you probably aren't in the right environment. But don't be afraid to turn over stones and think, what am I good at, or where could I go? Maybe you'd be amazing in an esthetician office that needs a really good front end, or maybe, you know what I mean? Like, just getting creative, because there's so much opportunity. But I think what it comes down to is to get yourself connected into a strong network, and have good support from your leadership.
I think connection is something that everybody should step out and find it. And now with COVID behind us, and COVID really did a lot of, it was a big challenge for assistants all the way around, because assistants didn't sign up to be virtual assistants, and yet they all ended up being virtual assistants at one
Yes.
point in time, another in COVID. I have a question though. You mentioned something. You talked about how your workaholic boss, and so forth and so on. A lot of entrepreneurs never shut down. They just don't. It's like, and I know that, like myself, I'll be working at 10 o'clock at night, or I'll be up at 3 o'clock in the morning because something hits me and I've got to get it down. And I know that that how do you inspire? Because I know nobody's going to, it's like your children. Nobody's going to love your kids quite like you do. I have three
Mine
kids.
are the cutest, I swear. Yeah.
But so what is some of the ways that, aside from money, what are some of the ways that an employer can inspire the light the fire and really get that loyalty rolling? When maybe they are at a cap of what they can pay, but how do they win that loyalty and that excitement from their basically it's a cycle. When you look at it, Xena never went on the road by herself. Green
Yeah.
Lantern, the guy next to him knew way more than he did. The
Yeah.
reality is that, I mean, all of these relationships come from a depiction of somebody who's willing to run into the burning building and the other person who has to run the logistics to ensure they have enough stuff going in. Right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So how do you win that loyalty?
I feel that to win that loyalty, it's like cultivating a true relationship. You're not going to give your baby to someone that you don't trust. And to work in an environment where you know that they have your back, I think there's just such a sense of empowerment that starts to just evolve. And there's nothing worse to work in an environment where you don't have that. And if you don't, I highly, highly recommend getting connected to a support group like AAP. There's many other industry support systems out there. Reach out to me. I will connect you. But, just to recognize how important it is to really learn that. And like every relationship, whether it's with your boss or with your spouse or with your sister or your mom, you're not going to get to that next level in your relationship if you don't have trust and you don't really understand how to communicate with that person. And you don't make the time to learn that. So maybe that's something that might evolve organically if you're really lucky. But I think admins, and so many admins that I know, which I find so incredibly interesting but not surprising, are entrepreneurs themselves, and also are doing other things on the side that are very successful or very niche, and they're stinking good at it just because they understand the fundamentals of how to get things done. So I find it really interesting when people ask me that, because it's like, I think not only does it come down to really learning the work style of the individual that you're supporting or the team you're supporting, but also bringing that back full circle. Don't get caught up in the small stuff, and learn about the environment that you're in, get connected, and have that support. And like beyond that, it's so, like I said, it's so fascinating, the entrepreneurs that I know that are also in this world, because it brings me so much joy and inspiration the more admins that I meet, and I go, do you do anything on the side? And I know you and I have had that conversation, and I have, touch points of all sorts of interesting things. And it always blows me away. And they do them, and they do them well. And you're going, oh, wow, okay. Yeah, you are in your wheelhouse, So.
Yeah. Well, and when you look at it with inflation where it's at, what better time than to cultivate a side hustle and to have, I mean, I don't think I actually know anybody who is just working one thing. I don't think. I think that we're in a world and we're in a space now where people can actually do multiple things. Like, even the mechanics who work at a mechanic shop now will be doing, something on a weekend for a day where they're specializing in one type of motor for snowmobiles, right? So
Yeah.
you're seeing a lot of people who are taking a lot more control over their
Yeah.
own personal finances and
And I
what they
think,
bring in.
totally agree. And I feel that we're living in a time when we have such a barrage of information that we can tap into, that is constantly inspiring people of all ages. I just saw an award ceremony for entrepreneurs that were 70 and older. in Calgary. And I
Very
was like, wow,
cool.
to start up something in your 70s to me is just as inspirational as a little kid who has um, a cooking show, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
A
to go,
lemonade stand. I mean, doing
exactly.
something.
Right. And I think we're living in a world where that is so socially acceptable, and we want to support one another and pull that out of each other and inspire each other. Or it just so happens that, the neighbor next door who's a banker also happens to be an incredible artist, and then they're selling art, and you kind of do like this power of connection and information that, if we use it wisely and use our time wisely, I think can really open the threshold for our own levels of entrepreneurship and creativity.
Okay, so why do you do what you do? You are wicked, wicked, wicked smart. Why do you do what you do?
I love it. I really love it. Ever since I was a little girl, I used to throw my mom's high heels on and carry around my dad's briefcase and imagine what it would be like one day to run an office. I, I just, I have a heart to serve and to like I said, to really get behind somebody and make sure that I passionately see something from start to finish, and that's just who I am. Um, it also is a really incredible career because you're privy to a lot of information and not a lot of the stress. So I have a really healthy work life balance and a really full life, and I think it's given me a lot of opportunity. So in this profession, it's fascinating the doors that can be open to all sorts of walks of life and people and situations and experiences. And I honestly love what I do.
And you know what? Not everybody can say that. And work-life balance is a lot. That's worth a lot. And it's interesting because the average entrepreneur in the United States, I think, came in at like $46,000 a year. So, and maybe that's not all it's cracked up to be. Um, it's different strokes for different folks. I just know that everything comes in pairs for a reason.
Yep.
If we saw the arc, there's a reason everything's in pairs, right?
Yes.
And if you want to expand your business and grow and such, you got to have that good counterpart. Um, so let's talk resilience. Can you share a time in your life that without resilience, we would not be having this conversation?
Oh, I have some pretty wild stories. I think resilience, when I looked up the actual definition of resilience when I first saw that you had created this series of, resilient women in different fields of life. And one of the things that resounded with me was with resilience was your ability to recover quickly. And I thought, okay, we hear the word resilient, like I'm resilient, I'm strong. Does that mean I'm strong? I'm tough. I can handle a lot. That's kind of what the idea of what I thought resilience was. Like I got this like ability to keep marching, but I'm like, okay, the true definition is your ability to recover quickly from difficulty. Okay. How does someone how do we get there? I think it's something that maybe through life experiences, some of us are lucky enough to go, I recovered quickly and I came out the other side of this. But to be honest, I think it was the way that I was raised. It's like, there wasn't failure in my home. It was an opportunity to learn and go and to get back on your feet and to try again. And, I have three sisters and our house was a busy house. And it just, my dad really never gave us the opportunity to wallow in a situation. Instead, he would say, this is your platform or your stepping stone into what you're going to do next. And that's always the way that I've lived my life. And I think I'm really fortunate to have been raised with that steady reinforcement But when I learned truly what resilient was and thought, okay, this is the actual dictionary definition. How do you have the capacity to recover quickly if you've experienced trauma or gone through something, absolutely horrific? What does that mean? I haven't lost a limb. I haven't lost a child. Like, you hear these crazy stories. You go, well, what's my testimony? I don't have anything wild and life altering per se in something that's easy to recognize. But I think there's an experience that everyone can resonate with that they've had to overcome in order to say, I am resilient, or I want to experience resiliency in my own life. And for me, I think it was just something I was born into. I had entrepreneur parents and a busy house. And it was like you had to help, you had to participate, you had to also not sit in a place of like sorrow or worry or fear. It was like, let's embrace this and get on with it and on to the next thing. And so, I think we all have these life experiences that equip you to move forward. So, I mean, if I had to pinpoint a pretty wild experience that's happened to me in the last few years, that I'd be happy to share with you. My husband and I snowmobile, like you mentioned in my bio. It's one of our favorite hobbies that I feel has really enhanced our marriage and our relationship. We are very dedicated to the sport. But a few years ago, we got stuck on the mountain overnight in the far back of the Alpine. And it was a pretty crazy experience. It was, we were in an area that at that time, my husband took me into a zone with another one of my girlfriends with me. There's just the three of us. That was way farther advanced beyond the capacity that I could ride back then. A crazy storm set in that night. We were supposed to be off the mountain by before dinner. My friend was supposed to be meeting her boyfriend for it was actually Valentine's Day, so I'll never forget that day, which is always the running joke in our family now. But to make a really wild story come together, it snowed 8 inches in less than an hour at one point. All of our tracks are covered up. It was completely socked in and fogged in. And I had my mother-in-law with our 18-month-old daughter waiting for us for dinner at the bottom of the hill. And it absolutely gutted me to think she doesn't know that we're okay. The avalanche risks were high. We had no way of communicating with her who had my daughter or with my parents and my sisters. And you kind of just start to like build up all these things going, I wonder if anyone notices we're not back yet. I wonder if anyone cares. Are we going to make it out? Okay. And then we start to realize we had a broken down snowmobile, a sled out of gas, and there's three of us with one machine. And so my husband continued to work all night to get back out of the Alpine. So me and my girlfriend spent the whole night building a fire or attempting to. And that's very challenging when every single limb of a tree and every speck of everything around you is completely saturated and covered in snow. So as equipped as I was and as educated as I was to be in that environment, it was extremely challenging to continue to be positive. Although, as you know, Kim, we can talk a lot. And one of the things that kept us going through the night is my friend said to me at one point, can you just tell me a story? And like, we got to stay awake here. She started to not be able to feel her hands. Like it was so cold, all these crazy things. We got to stay busy. So I climbed up a tree. I'm sawing off dead branches from up way in a tree with one flashlight headlight that I had. And she's cutting them. We had two saws and we're trying to build a little tiny fire. Oh my God, it was such a crazy night. And here I am telling her a story. And I said, do you want to hear the craziest thing I've ever been through? And she's like, yeah, tell me the entire thing. Like, let's burn an hour. So I start telling her, I was like, she's single, no children. And I say, do you want to hear about childbirth? And she's like, oh God, this is going to be a good story. So I think I scared her probably into not wanting kids ever, but I share with her my birth story. And I think she almost threw up. It was pretty wild and interesting, but it actually, we bonded, we laughed, it kept us moving, and it was
And,
just a
and,
crazy
and what
night.
people need to know is that every year here in Canada, somebody dies on those trails. So that's like the fear is very real being
It
trapped
is,
there.
there is some serious risk associated with taking
And you
that
never went
type
out
of,
again, right? You never went
well,
out again snowmobiling.
so that
This is
as
where
the
the
sun
resilience
began
is.
to as the sun began to rise in the morning, and we realized that our only way out was to hike out, and we started hiking. I thought, this is so frustrating for me. Like, how has nobody come to rescue us yet? Like, hello, don't you miss me? Come to find out that everyone thought we were dead because the avalanche risks were so high. My husband has volunteered a lot with the search and rescue to go out and help people that have gotten stuck. So when they heard who it was that we're stuck, they actually deployed, I think, a dozen search and rescue guys that night. They couldn't find us, and then it was too unsafe to fly a helicopter. To make a long story short, they flew in a helicopter and spotted us hiking up the side of a mountain the next morning. I think, other than maybe my wedding day and giving birth to my daughter, that's probably the third most exciting moments of my life. I was so exasperated with joy that I couldn't even catch my breath when I realized that helicopter was there for us. But there was absolutely no way that I was spending another night on that mountain. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm not hurt. Yes, I'm cold. Yes, I'm wet. But I have enough lasagna in my backpack to feed like 15 more people. I got Cliff Bars, matches. We are making it off this hill. If I have to roll down it myself, we're going to go. And here we were marching out, and this helicopter came and airlifted us off. It was like a glorious moment. Coming out of that was, you learn how to be better educated and better prepared the next time. And it was, it really rocked our family. It made us recognize that there's even more things we can do to be better prepared. But it was kind of interesting too, because I came out of that and I was so tired and I was so exhausted for like 2 weeks. My mom came to visit. She was so worried. And I'm like, in the spin class with my mom, like, I just can't get it back together after that experience. She's like, well, you've been through all this trauma. Just let your body relax. I'm like, no, because I don't like to do that. I'm not very good at relaxing. So here we are. And I ended up finding out I was pregnant, and I had been pregnant during that whole experience. So our second daughter, who's now 5, her name is Roxana, and it means by the grace of God. So it was just literally a moment in time that I actually hemorrhaged quite bad after that experience, and I didn't realize I was pregnant. So she's here to tell the story and to just kind of tap into some resiliency, like, I think it just made us be more educated and more prepared. And now myself, my husband, and our 2 girls also ride with us in the Alpine, and we absolutely love it. So there's a crazy
Wow.
story for you.
By the grace of God, and yes, and like I said, every year I hear somebody who has unfortunately perished in the Canadian Rockies because it is real. It is
It is
real.
real.
There's no
Yeah.
It's not a simulator, folks. It's not controlled.
Yeah.
And there's bears in there. There's all sorts of stuff. Like, I mean, I remember moving here, and first time I saw a rabbit. And I'm being from Wichita, Kansas. The rabbits are these cute little bunnies. And here they're like giant hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
we're not too far off from where you see in Australia, where, there's like 10 ways to die before you get to open water, right? But
Yeah.
it can happen here. So I always
Absolutely.
ask about books. I always like to leave everybody with a book. What is a book that you would recommend everybody read? Either it's a favorite or one that you think that inspires, or it could be a smart book. It could be anything you want.
I'm currently in the middle of reading Anne Hyatt's book called Bet on Yourself. She is a powerhouse that was actually the executive assistant to Jeff Bezos. And just really sharing her story. Her dad was the story about Top Gun was Goose. And she was raised by a pretty wild family that was passionate about education and adventure. And um, she's amazing. And I'm halfway through. I'm loving it. I would recommend it for anyone. And even more so if you happen to be an entrepreneur or in the admin profession.
Excellent. All right. Now, this is where I ask your quote. Where, well, first of all, before we go to your quote, what is your admin professionals? What's your email? Can you just share that with us?
Sure. My email is okay, which one? I'm thinking I'm on the national board now. So it's aap.national.secretary@canadianadmin.ca. And if you go to my LinkedIn, Christa Hiebert, you will see my favorite quote, which has been on my LinkedIn ever since I joined LinkedIn when it first became a thing. And it says, doing things I've never done before. Growth and comfort do not coexist.
Exactly. Exactly. And remember, good is the enemy of great. You can't have greatness if you're just being good. That
Yeah.
is amazing. Anything else you'd like to share with everybody?
Kim, just I appreciate you creating this environment. I love your talks. I love your passion behind resiliency and support for women in every realm of life, not just women, of anyone. And the things about resiliency that you embody that I love so much about you and about this platform is just the awareness, the perseverance, and optimism and support and perspective, all these things. I have so much gratitude that you are having a voice then in an environment where I think we would really all need someone to advocate for each other. So thank you for that.
That's what we're here for. All right, folks, that's it for today. But do remember, if your resiliency is lagging and you're feeling like you just need that boost, listen and lean in to the resilient community here, and you can get your free magazine. We have a new monthly magazine. We have all sorts of stuff on the back end, and you can get that at resilientgift.com. There is no asking of credit cards. There's nothing like that. It's totally free because, hey, I want to share. I've had an awesome life. I have awesome women I talk to, and I just want you to know that you too are awesome. And that's why the resilient community is here. Until next time, I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and this is Kim Talks Resilience.